You got it. All right, let's bring in our panel right now. And after 2 days away from us, it is the return of political journalist and author Dominic Carter.
Was he on a junket?
We're gonna get to the bottom where he was. Trust me, this hour. That voice from the darkness was Chris Shays, former Connecticut congressman, distinguished fellow, not just a fellow, but distinguished in public service at the great University of New Haven, and our senior political correspondent Andrew Whitman, who you already met. Let's talk about what's happened in New Jersey. We'll get to the politics in a second, but Andrew showed the map, Congressman. It's dot here, dot there, regional. Is the state-by-state approach the right way to go here, or should this thing be just a national thing once and for all?
It's going to happen, and it's better if people get used to it and get comfortable with it rather than a national mandate on some states that don't want it. I was surprised, I don't know about you, that it was still only 14 states. It has moved quickly.
You're absolutely right. I would have thought that the number was, if not double, something close to it.
Yeah, right. So it's less than 1/3 of all the states. But it's going to happen, and I just urge my friends to, it's very important to them, obviously, but in time it will happen, and it will happen in what I consider the right way, because there'll be just a general acceptance. What's the big deal?
We can all talk to people, and I think this is really more of a generational issue, but I know people who are even progressive in a lot of things, but 5-6 years ago, they were, if they're 60s or 70s, like, listen, I'm for gay rights, but I don't know about marriage. Now, they know somebody, they got a kid, they got a nephew, they got a coworker, and then they say, what was I worried about,
That's the key. They're beginning to realize that some of their best friends may in fact be gay. And there's some humor here in some ways, because I remember supporting non-discrimination in the workplace against gays, and I was the lead person. And my mother wrote someone who was opposed to it, thanking him for his courage in opposing the bill. So it is a generational thing.
Right?
And I have a loving, wonderful mother.
But did you love me either?
I'm concerned, though, that we're taking it too piecemeal, because at some point, I know there's going to be a tipping point, and we don't want to thrust everybody into the same position, but you get a couple that's married in one state that travels to another state or moves to another state and all of a sudden loses those rights. You'll have some states that don't recognize marriages in other states. If you go to Oklahoma and you got married in New York and you're a same-sex couple, you lose all of those rights the moment you set foot into the state of Oklahoma.
But don't you feel, Andrew, there's an inevitability to this?
I'm sure there is, but when we were back in the day of separate but equal, and there was outright segregation, there were, by this standard, there would still be some pockets of the Deep South that were still deeply segregated. I worry that there will be parts of this country that will be segregated for same-sex couples for generations still to come.
But Richard, I'm with the Congress. I respect what you're saying, but I'm with the congressman on this one. Rather than throwing it at you all at once from a national point of view, and I mean, I understand how my friends that feel about this issue, but why not let it go state by state, where people feel they have more of a say or more of an interest in it? It's more directed, they're more directly involved, as opposed to from the national government. Look at healthcare. Look at, do you support Obamacare? No. Do you support Affordable Health Care Act? Yes.
And while it is 14, if you look at through state legislatures where this issue's percolating, like I said, it's a matter of time. Let me stay on the politics for a second, though, Dominic. Chris Christie, unabashedly, I'm a fan in terms of the authenticity he conveys here, and that's in short supply, I think, on the political landscape. But he's tried to thread the needle on the issue of choice. He's clearly pro-life. And on this issue, he was against this. He's chosen, though, not to continue this legal fight. I think it's the best he could have done while trying to keep some conservative bona fides here if he runs, as we expect he will, for president in 2016.
He threaded, Richard, you're right, he threaded this needle perfectly in terms of making a bad situation as good as possible. If he had come out in support of this 2016 with the conservatives, you're done. And so either way, he was in a no-win situation. But he handled it in a way where hands off, we'll let the court decide, and you can be supportive in other ways.
Did you remember who was the lawmaker who I think immediately after the election talked about his son, who was...
Was that Rob Portman in Ohio, the
senator? Thank you. That's exactly it. And I think of also Dick Cheney with his daughter. I don't think, if people look at those cases specifically, that even ardent opponents of gay rights, I think you can get a political pass on this issue in the conservative ranks. That this is a I'm not talking about being a national elected, but if you want to do something on the state level, you're not going to lose your job if you support gay marriage and you're a Republican. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're right. I think you're not wrong. Yeah.
He says it with shock.
It's interesting because I think that you would. I don't think you could,
Yeah, I
could get
think,
by
I
on
think if
this
Ted
issue.
Cruz came out and said, you know what, I'm a big fan of same-sex marriage and gay rights, I think his job would be.
But you know what? He could play, Andrew, like so many, the libertarian angle, if you think about it, which is, you know what? We want government out of people's lives. Let people marry. I think there's many escape hatches to the
inconsistency
argument.
of the conservatives. They want to thrust their social agenda, and yet they also want to say, you know, don't interrupt my life. Let me live my life.
That's a terrific point because so much of the conservative movement has been the religious.
The social conservatives.
Absolutely, that's been a large portion of the conservative movement for the last 30 years.
Now, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about the issue that's dominated, obviously, this program and the national consciousness for the last few weeks, and that is the drama that has been Washington. After the debt and shutdown dilemma here, what is next? We didn't solve the problem. We're going to have to be readdressing this in January and February, both the shutdown and the debt limit here. So where do we go from here? And also, what's next for the Tea Party? We'll get into that after this.